A small group met last week at the Patterson's home, and the purpose was to encourage our group to embrace this idea of doing things within the community. Good deeds, no strings attached, no expectations of anything in return, just acts of kindness. Now, that idea is explained in detail in the book Conspiracy of Kindness, and which many of us have read and loved. And if you haven't, I strongly encourage you to do so. They're available on the narthex table, or check with Pastor James. Yep, okay. So, the personal experience was that I had thought before we went to this meeting, it would be nice to have an example to share with the group of how this might work. And so I, plus 3 co-conspirators, did an act of kindness. Now I need to back up for the previous week. I was going to the ambulatory care facility in Waterford here for a procedure. And as I was walking up the entranceway to go into the front doors, I looked to the side and said, wow, flowers, you've lost your beauty, and to the weeds here. I mean, the gardens were deplorable. It just, it was sad. The flowers were struggling to break through. So I continued a couple of steps, and then I had this aha moment. Translation, Holy Spirit moment. Because the Holy Spirit was answering a prayer that I had been saying that said, show me opportunities that I might have in serving my community with kindness. And you see, I know that without that prayer, that I would have walked up that front door, focused on my procedure and totally unaware of the weeds on either side of me. I just know that that is the case. So then I asked 3 dear friends if they wanted to be my co-conspirators, and without hesitation, yes. And my co-conspirators were Louise Abersall, Ida McCutcheon, and Sandy Lewis. And for a few short days later, the 4 of us, armed with tools, drove into the Waterford Ambulatory Care Facility parking lot, parked our cars, and gathered and said a short prayer asking God to bless our efforts in planting some seeds for His kingdom. And then we entered the facility and asked the receptionist, do you think anybody would have any objections if we weeded the flower gardens out front? The receptionist's reaction was priceless. Her eyes flew open, and she kind of stammered, and she was turning to the left and right. She was walking away, but then she had to turn back and talk to us again and say, oh, my boss is going to be so pleased. And and she said, what is, and then she just was befuddled. It wasn't making real good sense. And off she went to talk to whoever it was she needed to talk to. And a short time later, out comes this young Nicole, and she's acting just as befuddled. She came out into the hall and she said, you want to weed our flower gardens? And we said, yes. And she went, oh, and she did the same thing, a little half-turn dance, and she didn't know what to say or what to do. And she said, well, she just didn't know what to make of this. And so finally she said, who are you? And Sandy was prepared and had a little card that had a little icon of Bethany Church and the address, and on the reverse side, I'm not sure of the exact words, it said something, this is being done just to show you God's love, something on that order. I don't know exactly, but it said something, and so out she went with us to weed the gardens, and she kind of stood there like not knowing exactly what to say or do and not believing that this was happening, and we gathered our tools and went to work. She came out once and really didn't make a whole lot of sense. She just kept saying, oh, so many weeds, this is wonderful, and then turned around and ran back in. Now, as we were doing this, we had a lot of comments from a lot of different people entering or leaving, and some of them were the ones you expect, like, oh, come to my place next, and I think we had 5 on the list that there were, but we were getting a lot of positive comments, but none like the one that one man said that worked there and was leaving and came out on the way to the parking lot and stopped and said, "You women are my heroes." Well, all 4 of us just stopped waiting for a minute and looked at each other and looked at him. Wow, I don't know when anyone has said to me, "You are my hero." And to end the story, we worked hard, and it was dirty work. It was the morning after it had rained, and we worked hard and dirty for an hour and 40 minutes. We learned some things. One was that we kind of underestimated the job. There were a lot more weeds than what we thought. And so we didn't have quite enough of the brown bags that you need to set curbside, and we didn't have a broom to clean up the mess we were making, so we put an emergency call into Al, and he was close and ran up with the bags and the thing. But we finished our work, and when we completed it, I think it's safe to say that all 4 of us were very proud about our work, and we had a feeling of accomplishment that was wonderful, and a sense of pride in a community facility that normally you just go to and don't think about that facility at all, other than that it's performing a procedure for you and out you leave. But now there was like a little piece of ownership and pride in that place. And bottom line is, we had fun. I've never had that kind of fun when I weeded my own gardens. So we're going to return, and we're going to plant some more seeds and kind of go a little further with our weeding and see that the flowers are maintained. But it was just a wonderful experience, and we're ready to do it, and encourage you to read the book and join us in our conspiracies of doing acts of kindness.
Now, Lottie, there's something you don't know about this. Yesterday in the mail, there's a postscript here. Yesterday in the mail, I got this letter. It's from Nicole Hawkins, the Waterford Ambulatory Care Manager at the DHM Waterford Ambulatory Care Center, where you guys went and did this act of kindness. And it was addressed to the church, and it says, "To the wonderful ladies that volunteered to work on our garden." And it says, "The staff at Waterford Ambulatory Care Center wants to send out a big thank you," in all capital letters. "There were 4 amazing women that volunteered their time to help with the beautification of the clinic. Our hospital has had some financial struggles, and the clinic's appearance shows that. These ladies made the out front entrance look beautiful again. I cannot express the thanks I have for the extra help. I hope that this letter gets to those 4 women. I want them to understand how truly blessed we feel that they helped out. The simple pulling of weeds made us feel that the community still supports and cares for this hospital. Thank you, Nicole Hawkins." Isn't that wonderful? Thank you.
Louise has a little, can she say something?
No, ask her.
A little follow-up to this, Louise?
There's a follow-up story.
Yeah.
Well, there's a island garden right out here in the parking lot that has a terrible crabgrass infestation. And I work on that periodically, and you know how hard crabgrass is to get up, and then it just keeps coming back. I don't know, it multiplies terribly. And so every time I'm here, I try to remember to stop and pull up some more crabgrass. And so last week, this past week, I met with Pastor James we meet before council to set the agenda. And as I was going out to the car, I thought, I don't have my tools with me, but maybe I can pull off some of the coral bell stalks that are old and dried. So I went over, and the whole thing was weeded. And it was beautiful, and there was no crabgrass. Well, Pastor James happened to be out with one of his government service, community service workers, and he came over and he said, and I forget who it is, but it was a mother of one of the community service workers who came to pick up her son, And she thought, well, that crabgrass needs pulling. And so she weeded it. So see, what goes around comes around.